Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. The Kingdom of Ashanti lasted for around 2 centuries, from 1701 to around 1901, and was located in the southwestern part of Africa in the land just above what is known as the Gold Coast, and expanded into what we know today as the Ivory Coast and Tonga. For centuries, the land along the coast has been rich in gold, hence the name, as well as other natural resources, and this generated trade and wealth for the West African Kingdom, forging trade routes with the Americas and across Europe. However, by the late 1600s, there was one natural resource that the Kingdom of Ashanti, as well as other communities along the west coast of Africa, was also prolific in: the slave trade. And this was just as highly lucrative to the native African as it was to the European. It was the leadership of the great Osei Tutu who not only founded the Ashanti Kingdom under the guidance of his priest and most trusted advisor, Okomfu Anyoki, but in the short term of his reign as king, 1695 to 1717, brought the Ashanti Kingdom to greatness. The Ashanti Kingdom is one of many prime examples of African societies that have broke the mould in terms of stereotypes about African communities and their identities. It was a kingdom that possessed enormous military capacity, amassed great wealth through its trade networks, and had a sophisticated hierarchical structure. The Kingdom of Ashanti is one of the most studied histories of indigenous African cultures by the British, and if this is the case, you could wonder why it has not formally become a topic of choice to be taught in our history curriculum, either in primary or secondary school. It was Osei Tutu who established the Golden Stool of Ashanti as a unifying symbol of his kingdom, his people. The stool was shrouded in mythology of descending from the sky and landing in the lap of the favoured one, signifying the divine right of kings and ultimate power of sovereignty, with the chosen one whose lineage would embody this sovereignty and the right to sit on the throne of Ashanti forever. So potent was this belief amongst the people and his sovereign about the golden stool that a future king actually chose to be exiled from his kingdom rather than suffer the humility of the loss of the power that the golden stool embodied when Ashanti was later threatened with annexation. The golden stool was a curved seat 46 centimetres in height with a platform base 61 centimetres wide and 30 centimetres deep. Its entire surface is inlaid with gold and hung with bells to warn the king of impending danger. So sacred was the golden stool that it was only viewed by the king, the queen, and the true prince in line to the throne, and its location was only known by trusted aides. The golden stool was also symbolic of an individual's uniqueness. Each stool is designed and made with a different meaning for the person whose soul it seats. Each stool is made by following the same process, carved from a single block of wood from the tall Alstonia boni tree, chosen for its spiritual associations with the Ashanti people, with a crescent-shaped seat, flat base, and complex support structure. It is so visually iconic that the stool has been replicated in many cultures and sold worldwide. Such is the global appeal of the Golden Stool that it could be viewed as the embodiment of a country's identity, civil liberties, moral compass, socio-political integrity, culture and customs, sovereignty, lineage and legacy. The Golden Stool is a nation's embodiment of all that it believes in, what it is prepared to give up in order to keep, and what a nation is prepared to stand up for. Ultimately, the Golden Stool signifies that which matters most. A violation of a country's Golden Stool through exploitation, enslavement, war and/or colonial expansion imposed by a foreign power surely has to be the greatest war crime. England had abolished slavery as a practice in 1807, but their interest in exploring the interior of the African continent goes back to the mid-1600s. By the 1820s, England had established its presence along the Gold Coast when it agreed to support the Fanti people in their conflicts with the Ashanti, who were constantly trying to invade and occupy that area of coastline. The first Angelo-Ashanti War, 1823-31, was prompted by the killing of an African serviceman and the deaths of 10 Englishmen who had been led into a trap intended for the Ashanti enemy. The English charge was first led by Governor Sir Charles McCarthy, who met an untimely and gruesome demise, and was replaced by the new governor, John Hope Smith. This war resulted in the Ashantis agreeing to accept the Pra River as the boundary between the Ashanti Kingdom and the coastline. The Second Anglo-Ashanti War, 1863-64, was caused by the Ashanti crossing the River Pra to allegedly search for a fugitive. This war ended in a stalemate due to sickness and disease, killing more fighters than the battle itself. By the Third Anglo-Ashanti War, 1873-74, England had established ownership of a part of the Gold Coast through purchasing this from the Dutch in 1872, and so had a permanent foothold in the area. This particular war was characterised by the participation of other African and West Indian allies of the English against the Ashanti, as well as the English arms manufacturers selling weapons to both sides. This war resulted in the English onslaught and burning of the Ashanti capital city of Kumasi, as well as the city's royal palace. The English also began their occupancy of the capital city, and Ashanti's then king, Kofi Karakari, signed the Treaty of Femina, which Ashanti agreed to not only pay England reparations for the war, but also to end the human sacrifice and to allow for open trade by the English from the Gold Coast across the River Pra to Kumasi. With each successive war could be seen the gradual undermining and demise of the Ashanti Kingdom and the realisation that there would be a moment when its Golden Stool would be under threat. That moment came in the Fourth Anglo-Ashanti War, 1895-96. This war was in the aftermath of the Berlin Conference 1884-85 and was a result of Ashanti's resistance to being annexed in 1891 by the British, who also wanted to establish a formal residency in Kumasi. Despite Ashanti's attempt to negotiate some concessions for England by sending a delegation to London, the English refused, fearing intrusion from the French and German. The war was characterised again with English-led indigenous forces. Major Robert Baden-Powell's reasons for the war? An obvious objective was to aid colonial expansion, but he reasoned that it was also to end the practices of slavery and human sacrifice, and to obtain outstanding reparations for the previous war. The Fifth Anglo-Ashanti War in 1900 was, from my perspective, the climax and most significant conflict of all 5 wars, as it completely undermined the integrity of the Ashanti people. It is also known as the Third Ashanti Expedition, or the Ashanti Uprising, or the Nana-Ya Asantewa War, after its commander-in-chief, the Queen Mother to Ashanti's then king at the time, Prempeh I, who was so devastated by the annexation that he went into exile to the Seychelles rather than suffer the humiliation of the loss of his sovereignty. In 1900, Governor Sir Frederick Hodgson demanded to sit on the Golden Stool and ordered for it to be searched for. Such an act was in violation of the Ashanti people's sovereignty as well as their integrity. How does it feel to have a total stranger, an outsider, declaring your land as annexed and colonised, your natural resources seized, and now demanding to occupy the seat of power both physically and symbolically? Many of us can only imagine what this may feel like as we witness the war here in Europe and in other parts of the world. What do you do when your golden stool is under threat of being occupied by a foreign presence or being totally destroyed and replaced? You defend your golden stool with everything that you have. Nana-Ya Asantewa also went into exile with her son and other leaders of the Ashanti. In 1902, Ashanti became part of the Gold Coast Territory on the condition that the British did not violate the Golden Stool. Although the people of Ashanti suffered more casualties and had their rulers exiled, the Golden Stool had been so well hidden that in 1920 it was accidentally discovered by road workers, just 4 years prior to Prempeh I's return to his native land. Are the 5 Anglo-Ashanti Wars examples of the ultimate war crime? That of the process of colonization. A process achieved by creating division through exploiting the differences between tribes and using this as a basis to assert a continual presence and justification for your occupancy. Once continual occupation is achieved, control of resources and alternative value systems are introduced through treaties. Finally, a representative of this foreign power establishes a base in the capital city to make sure that these treaties are followed by the indigenous rulers, and once this is achieved, the process of assimilation begins. The final stage is formal annexation, either with or without the agreement of the indigenous people, and this is where the narrative of empire begins. What is that narrative? We're here to make things better by preventing your own self-destruction, and for this reason, you must compensate us for our losses. This narrative underpins the greatest war crime, and which ultimately undermines a country's golden stool. Although the Ashanti was classed as a colony through conquest and had lost their sovereignty for a time, they retained their essential integrity, values and socio-political system. In 1935, Ashanti achieved some form of self-regulation that was limited but established through the Ashanti Confederacy. The Crown Colony of the Ashanti continued under British administration with the Gold Coast until 1957, when, both Ashanti and the Gold Coast combined to form a new dominion and renamed Ghana through the Ghana Independence Act, the first of its kind in the African continent. If you liked this podcast, then you can listen to my other podcast episodes related to this one, such as The Pink Map Project, The Ultimate Paradox, South Africa's First Lady, Nokutule Dube, and ZANU and ZAPU, Contrasts and Similarities. Finally, don't forget what I call the heart and soul of the Stories to be Told movement, my stories or poetic narratives, Caribbean Wind, Caribbean Rush, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change. They are all available on the website in both ebook, Kindle and paperback formats. And don't forget to enter the draw for a free copy of Aspiring Authors magazine for Black History Month if you want to be in with a chance of being my winner for the month of May. Remember, I've decided to run the promotion beyond the month of March and continue to give away a free copy each month right up to UK Black History Month in October to a lucky winner on my email list. So visit the website storiestobetold.com and register for your free samples to enter the draw. There's still plenty of time to enter. Well, that's it for another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I am working now on the release of the next 4 titles, and I'm working on a launch date round about mid-July, so stay tuned. Follow me on social media. Feel free to like and share me on social media. When you visit the website, just click on whichever social media link you'd like to follow me on and I'll tell you more about it. But mid-July, that's going to be now the date, the timescale for which I am going to launch the next 4 titles. So I'm looking forward to that and I hope you are too. And as always, it's a pleasure and a privilege to share my learning journey with you in this podcast series, and I encourage you to either begin or continue your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. I'm Tracy DW, and this is a Stories to be Told podcast. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Thanks so much for listening again, and I'll see you on the next page.